Well, the entire world and its mother seems intent on ringing the doorbell and calling me on the phone. So I don't know how much I'm going to get done of this video without a break, but we shall see. Recently, I made a video in which, in passing, I criticised Peter Hitchens for, as he put it, giving up on the world, or probably on Britain. And he said he found it relaxing to come to terms with the fact that British society is going to hell in a handcart, and he can just disengage himself and laugh about it. And I got, in one of the comments underneath that video, a quote I'd forgotten about. And the quote is, "Because the world is perfidious, I am going into mourning." The quote is under this picture, painted by Peter Bruegel the Elder, according to the accepted wisdom, in 1568. Now, since I sometimes do wander off into the realms of cultural analysis, I thought I'd just go over this picture because that quote was indeed very apt. So the first thing I have to clear up is this. Why devote attention to a painting that's nearly 500 years old? What relevance does it have for us today? And my answer, of course, is that our modern Western culture has a history going back to the Romans, and that's 2,000 years, and we should never forget it. Especially when we come up against idiots who tell us the West has no culture. We do, and it's good, and it's worth preserving, but even more, it's worth knowing about. And that's why I keep on fighting for these things. There are too many teachers who are in charge of our children who think that kids should be taught rap lyrics because it's more relevant, and there aren't enough who think that kids should get to know a bit more about Chaucer. So I'm going to take a look at this painting and give you my take on it. Bruegel was a genius, and a genius is someone who not only possesses an extraordinary expressive talent, either in words or in paint, or even in engineering or physics or whatever, but they also express something universal, something that is relevant to us, whatever stage of civilization we're in. And I'm concentrating on art in this case, and Bruegel was talking about the human condition in a way that transcends the ages. What's happening in this picture is just as relevant to today as it was in 1568. So let's look at it. First of all, I have to point out that almost everything I found in this picture is capable of multiple interpretations, except for one small section. There isn't one thing that cannot be interpreted in 2 or even 3 ways. And what's the exception? Well, it's this tree here and the mushrooms. But I'll get to those a bit further down the line. First of all, starting at the back, there's a village. Now, normally, when you see pictures of the usual traditional village, a European village, in paintings, the first thing you see of that village is the church spire. That church spire tells the viewer that we're looking at a civilized settlement, not just a conglomeration of people. But in this picture, the spire is not of a church. It's a mill. That is, it's a place that represents physical rather than spiritual nourishment. So even that supposed symbol of the ordinary world, the village, is devoid of God in this picture, except for one thing. Look at how the simple wooden vanes on the mill are set. They look like a cross, don't they? Don't they especially look like this extravagant gold cross on the orb which surrounds the thief, somewhat surrealistically? This is what I mean by several interpretations. Is Bruegel saying that the mill, as a symbol of work, is a daily crucifixion? Is he saying that the people prefer the mill, which provides them with bread, to the church, which provides them with religion? Perish the thought. Is he saying that the people, including the shepherd, are concerned with their own little patch and are not taking care of this tree dying here in the foreground? Can it be that Bruegel is saying that the misanthrope, that old guy at the front, might be the most obvious sign of not caring, like Peter Hitchens, but the nameless villagers in the background are doing exactly the same thing in their own way, worshipping at the church of the mill, looking after their flocks, and letting the rest of the world go fend for itself? I don't know. Whatever, that's the world that the old man, the misanthrope, says he's turning his back on, because he sees nothing in it but perfidy. But you'll notice that because he's turned his back on the civilization behind him, whatever it is, he's become prey to a thief. So let's take a look at the thief. I've talked about the orb. It appears that the thief is protected by, or is hiding inside, this symbol of government. Here's a coronation picture of Queen Elizabeth I. Every Western monarch holds a similar orb at their coronation. It's the symbol of earthly power. So again, what's Bruegel saying? Is the government the thief? Well, it doesn't look much like it because the thief is in rags. So is the thief in collusion with the government in some way? For instance, does the government find it expedient to have an underclass of thieves? I'm sure some of you might be aware of how some political parties of today find it advantageous to have what amounts to battery farms of compliant voters who are depending upon the state in some way to keep them in power, laying votes like battery chickens lay eggs. In America, it's the projects. In Britain, it's the council estates. And in France, it used to be the banlieue, the suburbs where they dumped all the North African immigrants. But now they don't even get votes out of those guys because the banlieue have become ungovernable, which just shows that these things get out of even government control. However, back to Bruegel. We could go into a lot in this picture. There are many, many layers. But just one thing before I get to that tree and the mushrooms is the misanthrope's purse, which is not only outside the cloak, but so low that it's just asking to be stolen. It's as if the old man is actually dangling it in front of the thief just to prove himself right about the perfidy of the world. And how many people do you know who do stuff like that? And the second point is that, well, what does this money bag look like to you? Looks like a heart to me. And it dangles well out of his control, either by accident or design, and is prey to any opportunist with a sharp knife. The thief hasn't cut the cord yet. He's waiting for something. And what he's waiting for is here in front of the man. Spikes scattered on the ground. When the traveller spikes his foot, the thief can simply cut the cord and run, with the traveller unable to give chase. That world there in the background may not be as spiritual as you'd like, but you're no saint yourself. And whatever you do, you end up with a spike in your foot and your heart cut out. And where's all this going? Well, it's going towards that tree, this hollow, dying tree. The tree being a symbol of life and genealogy. Tree is always a symbol of genealogy. You know, the branching of succeeding generations is usually shown as a tree. And in Christian iconography, charity is also a tree. And no one is taking care of it. And no one is tending to it. And it's dying. Worse than that, these mushrooms here are a sign of something even more insidious. Because mushrooms are actually just the fruit, you know, of a much larger structure that hides underground. If you don't know about mushrooms, you should be aware that it's like an apple. A mushroom is like an apple. If an apple were the only part of the tree you could see, with the rest of the tree completely under the ground. And that's why I think this is the most important part of the picture, because there's no possibility of a double interpretation for it. The misanthrope is heading into extinction, the dead tree, and the village is allowing these mushrooms, a symbol of rot, and there's another word for rot, isn't there? It's corruption. They're allowing these mushrooms to flourish. And let's just see where that goes. Rotting happens when things are not being taken care of, when things are being ignored. Now, I know I'm probably I am repeating myself here because I made another video about it, but the slavery scandal, which has engulfed these islands over the past few years, I'm not going to call it the grooming gang scandal or even the sex slave scandal. It's just slavery. That's what it is, plain and simple. There are British people, mostly girls, being made slaves. And even today, although some have been caught, many are still proceeding in their activities. And it was ignored, and it's being ignored by the police, by the municipal authorities, by the press, by the media generally, and of course by the so-called intelligentsia, who are, in my poor opinion, anything but intelligent. But that's probably just the fruiting body of a rot that's going on underground throughout British society. We see another fruiting body in the condescending attitude of those guys in Parliament who consider the British people are too stupid to have voted the correct way. The two things may appear to be separated, but they aren't. The rot just stretches further underground, where we can't perceive it. So that's what I see in this picture. Except I have to add, no great art is ever just a picture or just a piece of writing. It says something about the human condition that's important and eternal. And I think I've just proved that by taking this painting as an example. Yeah, and now I have to change the subject a little. I also got word that my videos have been banned on the Starbucks Wi-Fi for containing harmful content or something. It means I'm on a list, and that list will probably be quoted by other people who make their own lists and aren't too intelligent about it. And it means, of course, there'll be more obstacles to my videos getting about. So I want to ask you to share my videos to try and overcome these blocks. Also, it would help if you could contribute, if you can. I have a Subscribestar account as Grannyopterix, and of course there's PayPal. And as they say, every little helps. And that's it. And I got through that video without another phone call. That's wonderful. If you want to donate or contact, the information will be rolling over the Grannyopterix as I speak. Please like, subscribe and share because it does help with the algorithm. If you visit my channel on YouTube and one day discover that I've disappeared without warning, you'll still find me on BitChute or Minds. Just go to either of those platforms and do a search for Grannyopterix. If you're already watching this on BitChute or Minds, good for you. Meanwhile, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember that you must keep checking the subscribe and bell icons because occasionally they reset. Till next time.